Kimberly, welcome back. We're delighted to see you. And our topic for this week is building the dojo community. And the reason why I wanted you to come here is, one, your dojo's been going for a mighty long time. But two, I know it's not exactly been plain sailing all along the way. And I think in some ways that's helped build your community. But it's, you know, you've had to work at it. So would you like to tell us where the dojo started?
Where did the dojo start? Well, I think before I want to say that, Quentin, I do want to start with telling you a story about Mary Heine Sensei and my first moments in the Seattle School of Aikido. Mary Heine Sensei, you know, taught most days, but in the years to come, she taught less and less. And one of those reasons might have been to offer her students the opportunity to teach. And it was just sort of like, I can't show up today. And as a collective, we had to come up with who would teach. And that began to be a pretty strong pattern that led to a collaborative effort that we would share this process. Unlike having just one coming from the top down, we all became the teachers at blue belt and brown belt. So that led to kind of a sense as a teacher myself that I would really like to give responsibility to people early on. So when I was a teacher, when I was the chief instructor of Seattle School of Aikido, there was a point at which it needed to shift for me. And my partner, Dan Maccabee, found an adult bookstore with red carpet on the ceilings, and the little office they built for me was the erotic part of the adult bookstore. So we had to kind of sage it a little bit, you know what I mean, or a lot. But that was our first school in the area of Green Lake in Seattle, which has just a lot of walking activity around it. So people would pop their heads in and see what was going on, and they would land there. So that's kind of how we started.
That's one way to have a sexy dojo, I guess.
Oh, stop it.
Okay, so you've opened this place up. On the first night, it's always difficult because who's going to show up? Who did show up?
Well, there were 5 of us that went from Seattle School of Aikido to this new school. And so 5 is a magic number, 5 and 2 kids. And then there was one woman in particular who trained every day. I believe all you need is one. I mean, Anno Sensei drives at 88 or 89 now, his little blue truck down the road to his dojo and trains with himself. Shinkokyu, does the Norito, and moves through space and time. And if there are students there, he trains with them. That's a pretty damn good example of how many people do you need to begin something or sustain it. I say 1.
So what year was this?
1995.
Okay, so you started with 5. Generally things start to go upwards, you start to build in numbers. In my experience, often you get these peaks and plateaus. Is that what happened for you? Or did it just grow? Did it snowball?
Well, I think one of the factors was the luckiness of the location, because there was so much foot traffic, and because we had windows. We really were accessible to the lake community. So that was really beautiful. And with 2 couples came 4 couples. And so there was, and the kids really, that's really what the key is, the parents bringing their children, and then some of them deciding, this looks kind of cool. So it did start to crescendo, and yeah, sure, there this and that, but it grew. So again.
So one of the things that strike me from that initially is that you've got men, women, and children all coming along at the same time. So for me, that's a great strength. It really encourages others to feel that they can be a part of this, because you've got a nice blend of people already. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, again, you know, the people, having been at Seattle School of Aikido for 5 years, there were some really incredible women and men that came with me. And so that, I guess, really needs to be acknowledged, is that there were people that had experience. And so it wasn't just me again as the teacher. Richard Darby was the Saturday morning teacher, and my partner was the Friday evening teacher. And so
that's quite, I mean, so that's again quite unusual compared to many dojos where, you know, there's a teacher and anybody else who tries to teach gets often shot down, inflamed. It's not encouraged. And learning from people outside of the dojo is not encouraged. I don't think that's kind of what would have happened where you were. Well, clearly not on the extra teachers in the club.
Well, again, I'm a lucky girl in the sense that with Mary Heine Sensei, there was really not a sense that I could or couldn't train with anyone. There was no, you know, there was only one person that she was not excited for me to train with, and of course I ran out and trained with that person. But why wouldn't you? But in truth, she was just like, try anything. So that was an important idea, that I had multiple teachers growing up, hence multiple communities. Obviously, in some of those communities, I'm a stepdaughter, but still, I got to really smell and taste varieties of way teachers ran their schools.
So what would you say about the idea of, it's quite prevalent of, you know, you should stick with just one teacher?
Well, do you only like one kind of apple?
Personally, no. I like all sorts of apple and different kinds of fruit.
You know, I just think that each teacher that you run into, you get the opportunity to assess what is it about that person that moves you, and what is it about that person that you would not care to you know, embody. I think it builds character, and I have really, really dear friends in the teachers that I studied with 40 years ago. So, I mean, Hiroshi Ikeda is not just a teacher, but we spent 21 days on the Colorado River together. So, you know, that is invaluable to me, that I get to have these diverse relationships with the people that.
Yeah. So at some point you must have got to a stage where your venue was maybe not quite the place to be. You needed some more space. What? No,
that's not how it went. The venue, we did crowd the venue, but but they raised the building.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they gave us like 15 minutes to get out of there.
Well, there's a first, well, actually your first challenge, but a major hurdle to overcome. So what happened then?
Well, the community at large started looking for property. And I think we looked at a myriad of spaces and arrived at something which was a furniture warehouse.
That's not the place you're in now.
No, that's the place I'm in now is a big old furniture warehouse. Yeah.
So that's still the place you're in now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we moved from Green Lake to another area about a mile away in 2005. Yeah.
So was this a much bigger place?
4 times the size. Well, you know, the mat size for us is 80 mats. So I think the dojo space itself is 4,500s, and the mats are 2/3 of that. So yeah, it's quite a bit bigger.
Wow. So did the population expand with the size of the mat, or how did that go?
Well, I will say in the first days, it was pretty daunting to attempt to fill that space. You had O Sensei, you had me, and, you know, maybe there'd be, you know, one or two people in certain situations, and you're just like, whoa, how do you expand to the four corners? But I think we get used to that. We build into that, and the population did increase, and so too did the number of teachers teaching. So the variety and the diversity of trainings that we offered grew too.
Yeah.
Which, yeah.
And did you have a children's program built in from the start, or did it start with them training with the adults and then you moved on to a children's program?
That's a really good question. I started the first days of with two 4-year-olds who both got their black belt at over the years, but that program grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. Sarah came to the school, and Sarah Gerhardt Snell came to the school maybe 4 or 5 years after I opened, and she had 3 kids. And soon after that, she's like, well, can I help with the kids class? And soon after that, she became the director of the youth program. So kind of went like that.
How important has that been?
Oh, the kids. Oh, yeah. I don't know how people, I mean, you got to have kids. I mean, you got to have kids because kids are the future of the art. And if kids believe in Aikido as children, even if they don't continue training, they have that substance. They have that the earth is my friend. They have that thing the rest of their lives, which is what they report to me. If they do continue to train, they offer that incredible elasticity and a sense of real deep connection, which, you know, you and I don't know when you started, Quentin, but even I started at 21. I mean, that wasn't 6 years old. So
I suspect you've got 1 or 2 great stories from kids that they've come back and reported stuff to you. Have you got a couple of favorites you can share?
Just incredible ones about having a Aiki soccer camp and just watching these kids run as fast as they could, and then, you know, be tripped and just and back up, keep running. And so we did a lot of soccer Aikido clinics, and just incredible. Or including, you know, things like a little girl just coming up and just watching her friend be bullied and over a water bottle, and just the little girl just steps in and goes, excuse me, I'll take that water bottle away from you, and walk away. And just that kind of direct courage, not cognitive, it's totally somatic. That was a body conscious decision that little girl made at 8 years old.
Wow.
Don't hurt my friend. Yeah, we even wrote a book about it, you know, Gus Learns to Fly, and it was actually his sister who was the one that stopped the fight. But
yeah, that's lovely. So how many of the kids actually end up kind of making it through to the adult program?
Well, we were really going gangbusters before COVID. We had like 17 teenagers that were really nearing their brown belt. I mean, not nearing, they were in their brown belt phases of things. And then COVID hit us, and it wiped that out pretty much. I mean, about 30% of our teenagers continued to train outside throughout the year, which is a pretty good number. Still, you know, for me, that was a humongous loss that now will take some work to return to that. And, you know, if it happens.
I'm sure it will. As you say, it'll just take time.
Faith is my problem, you know. I just, and any of my students will tell you, it's just like, Kimberly, it will return. So
I find a bit of cognitive dissonance between what you've done over the years, which is just stick at it, and you saying you haven't got any faith.
It's true.
Your inner self has a lot of faith. Your brain may override it.
Some part of me has some faith.
Yeah, okay. So what about the adults? I mean, a lot of dojos have found that it's getting an increasingly aging population, and they're concerned about that. What about in your dojo?
Well, yeah, I think, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, we let the kids, before COVID, we let the kids train first hour of the Saturday morning classes. So, we'd have 6-year-olds in there, and the oldest person is, I think, 78. So, and there's a range. Obviously, there's more people in their 50s, and there's people in their 60s, but we have a cadre of 30 and 40-year-old people, and we have a number of we have 3 kids, for example, that decided to go to the UW, and so as 18 and 19, 20-year-olds, they're training, which that is such a huge thing to have, young kids who actually feel assertive in their practice and grown up. And
okay, so do you remain confident for the future about, if you do things right, Aikido can flourish?
Well, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Last month, Mary Heine Sensei and I and my one of my students, who is a international trauma psychologist, Dr. Laura Brown, did a 2-hour piece on the power of Aikido to heal our neurobiology. And I know it's been touched, obviously Paul has been so wonderful in moving that type of information in the world, and others of you as well. But it was fantastic to really talk about that free state and how Aikido can address that in our beings. The fight and flight are obvious, but and Mary did a really beautiful thing on wrathful compassion, and then I really talked about Kokyu as being something that is about self-love, and the whole act of extending out and then bringing love in, and with just that technique we do, we can kind of transform that into.
Right. So we before we started to record, we were talking amongst the few that were here about how we market Aikido. Should it be marketed as a martial practice, or should it be marketed as a way of developing self, of finding peace, of healing, etc.? Clearly, that's the way that I say clearly, is it right to say that's the way you think it should go?
Can you say that again?
So if we have 2 directions, trying to develop the self, to generate peace, love, connection with other human beings, balance in society, against martial technique, which way do you think Aikido which way should Aikido be going if it's to be successful?
Well, we were talking about this before you started recording, that we've had a great deal of emphasis on the martial. I think the martial is important, but I think that we've had, as Terry Dobson says, we emphasize the martial and we forget about the art. And I think the art is so gorgeous. I mean, we're asking ourselves to study our skill sets and from a moment to moment. So yes, that's I think the whole reason to do Aikido. But
yeah. So in the last few years, you faced some trauma, in the sense that they were trying to kick you out of your space. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how that happened and how the community in the dojo got behind to make sure that actually you survived against the odds?
Quentin, COVID really kind of brought that back, because of that feeling, of that never-ending feeling of sitting in a lawsuit, wondering if they would take your dojo away. And that went on for over a year. We were in battle. It was quirky, it's a very long story, but the piece that was sad is that we purchased the building, and then when the people that sold us the building realized that the airspace was much more than they had allowed for in the sale, they wanted to pull back the purchase sale agreement and put us in a very untenable position. So
let's be clear. So you when you say you purchased the building, you had agreed to purchase, or you had actually transacted money, had an agreement in place, and then subsequent to that, they came back and said, well, hang on, we don't think that was fair.
Oh no, we purchased it loud and clear. It was just then they found a reason to suggest that we were fraudulent in our ways of purchasing it, that we knew something that they didn't. And so they slapped a lawsuit on us. Right. And they have much more money than we do as developers. And so it was definitely a David Goliath deal, but we had a really profound reaction from our community. And the funny thing is if, you know, you wouldn't wish this on anybody, but it really did strengthen the community sentiment. And the investors came through and felt even more deeply about the power of Aikido that Aikido should continue. So we had bold support the entire time. And that's what got us through.
I don't want to I'd like a little bit more detail. How did they actually get behind you? Give us a few examples of how they pulled together and actually helped you solve the problem. Because I know that you wouldn't classify yourself as a great legal expert.
That. You mean because I can't add? Come on, Quentin.
I work in financial services and I can't add. So, you know, what's that got to do with it?
I don't even, yeah. Well, you're right. But I'm pretty good at you know, my enthusiasm. So, yeah, somebody walked in the door. The building was for 1.6 million. So somebody walked in the door early on because they were going to rent it away from us. And so at the last minute, they gave us an opportunity to buy it, knowing that that would never be possible. But somebody did walk in and put down a loan for 400,000. And that went from a nothing to a really big something like that's possible. Like somebody would actually come out and do that. And then somebody else matched it, you know, a couple of months later. And then a group of people, some people who trained inside the dojo and some people out, and then smaller investors, all told maybe, I don't know, 20 people. So that are still still with us, supporting us in this process.
Well, that's not a normal story for most dojos. I don't think you can expect that sort of support. So why?
Well, the first person really believed in that Aikido had changed that person's life and drastically. And that person had resources, and that person felt that those resources were that this was a good place to put them. And then somebody else came along and they felt like their daughter had had a tremendous healing experience by being a not physical person and then discovering her ability to not just be physical, but to heal a congenital problem. So that person donated a hell of a lot of money, and not donated. This is all a loan, and it was set up by Friends of Two Cranes legal committee, and so people do get an investment amount from it.
So that phrase, a legal committee, strikes me as unusual about a dojo too. So how did you manage to have the resource to have a legal committee?
I asked for help. You know, I mean, so the director of the president of the board of our board was the CEO of Washington Water Trust, and she has quite a bit of savvy in those areas with banks, and she hired our real estate agent to take on this task of creating this very complicated way of creating this board. this leasing group.
So as you said, as simply as a statement, I asked for help. But maybe that's one reason why you are successful, because you know when to ask for help, and you're humble enough to say, I can't solve this problem on my own. Do you think that's unusual in Aikido? Or do you see it as part of the reason why actually you got through?
I don't know. I mean, of course I know, faith and that whole koan of faith, no faith, determination, and I think manifestation. I really do believe that you have a vision, you see it. I really talk to O Sensei every day. There's just no question for me that I put my faith in higher guidance, and I think that, again, I'll lean on Mary Sensei to say that she saw everybody who walked into her dojo as an Aikido teacher. And over the years, we've talked about every person that walks in your dojo as a potential O Sensei. So, I mean, I don't want to be wooey here, but I think that there is a very powerful piece of just praying for it, in a concrete way.
That's also a very clear example of the respect that you give to every student. They're all treated as having that potential. Whatever that potential is, you're there to help them fulfill it. And none of us know where that's going to go.
Yeah. One of the cool examples of that, Quentin, is that I can't remember, 6, 7, 8 years ago, Michael Friedel Sensei, Craig Five Sensei, and myself decided that we would put together a camp. The Aiki Summer Retreat had retired itself. Michael took it on, and we would flare it with this idea of creating a mentorship program, so that not only would we teach in this 5-day, 6-day camp, but we would ask up to 10 different people to teach in the mornings, and then co-teach with us. So we wanted to really grow this as a way that people could learn how to teach Aikido and come together as a community. And now Jeremy of Molly and Jeremy is on board to help us continue this camp. And it's just a great example, again, of collaboration and supporting teachers. And all those two men are so humble, and it's such a pleasure to work with in terms of teaching together.
Right. So I take it that the program's been pretty successful.
That camp was pretty successful. I mean, we were just about again, it felt like it was just really gaining momentum before COVID. And now we're sincerely moving to it again. We're going to offer it October 31st through November 5th of this year.
So let's talk about COVID a little bit, because then that's been a challenge for the whole Aikido. It's been a challenge for the world, but it's also been a challenge for Aikido communities around the world. Talk us through what's happened in your dojo over that period of time, how you have just carried on.
Well, early on, I just had no idea how I would come up with the amount of funding that it takes to run the building. So that was one. Two, the things about the building were the struggle, and also attempting a 7-day-a-week schedule on Zoom. We never stopped teaching, so we closed down for 1 week, and then we began a Zoom program with all the same classes. And I think we had a total of 14 teachers teaching between the kids program, the teens program, and the adult program. So for me, it was just a disaster those first few months. I had to write every word down, and I couldn't. How could you possibly extend ki through a screen? But I learned, and we all learned. And I don't mean to be camp about it, it was extremely difficult for me because I'm a spontaneous teacher and I channel my classes according to how I experience the person I'm working with in that present moment. So suddenly that's gone. And also I'm really shy. So this, you don't think that, but getting on a screen like this and trying to like say something, not, if not important, at least meaningful. So.
Well, okay. Just to say, you generally do fairly well on that front, so I don't think you need to worry too much on that score.
I learned, but you know what I mean. It's well, actually, you don't, because you were born on the screen, so you know you're pretty. No, you're pretty savvy on. You do so beautifully when in an interview.
So, so in many ways, actually, it's been a year of growth for you in unexpected ways.
Yep. People tell me I should think that. It has been, you know, you have to honor technology. I of course have students that are coming from places that they couldn't get to the dojo anyway. So now we have a whole new cadre of people who are part of the school, and we will continue to serve that community on Zoom with 3 or 4 classes a week until we decide that's no longer feasible.
Okay, so that's really interesting. Have you had different sorts of people wanting to do the online sessions?
Correct. For different reasons, because we had a whole weapon program, and then we had a whole program of looking at social details, so the social issues that came up during COVID. So there was a discussion group, and there was just the range of classes that we continued to teach. Not Rondori though. Rondori was, we stopped doing Rondori.
Okay. So now you've gone back to the mat, which is a recent thing, and I'm sure that you're in a process of rebuilding everything back up to the levels it was before. I imagine anyway. Do you feel in some ways that your teaching now is better than it was before because of what you've had to do online? Has it affected your on-mat teaching?
Yes, I'm more articulate. Yes, I'm more grateful. I mean, the quality of gratitude in my body has definitely fattened up. And people walk into the dojo and you watch them bow down onto the mat and kiss the mat. I mean, in tears. You watch people running to each other to hug each other. This I just didn't think would happen so quickly. You start to say to people, okay, take care of yourselves, go slow. That just didn't work at all.
Yeah. Okay. So
yes, I'm a better teacher. I'm a better teacher. I put periods on my sentences. I'm more clear about the details because I relied so heavily on my Tai Chi and Qigong practices. The entire year I taught Tai Chi. So inside of the Aikido techniques.
Yep. Because it's been an interesting year in America, and many things happened, not just COVID. We had the Black Lives Matter issue as well. And I know that caused a big furore across the land, across the world, in fact, but it had ramifications for the dojo too. How did that play out?
Well, I will say that in my community of the dojo, there was quite a bit of emphasis on education, on really educating ourselves deeply, really about our own internal violence and our own prejudices that are hidden in there, and unlocking that. I will also say that it really required more inclusivity and diversity, outreach. Seattle's quite a white city, and so that just means that we need more education and more awareness and more understanding, and that really happened. That really happened in our community, given the number of people that are involved in those worlds anyway.
So has that sort of opened people up in a way that again, was kind of unexpected?
That's hard to say, because people are coming back with a sense of just the urgency to even understand their bodies and their own physiological somatic structures. So I think there's quite a bit of, just like, who am I as I step on the mat at the moment? I think there's so many issues that people are looking at. Not the least is the trauma of just the touch, the fear of
yeah, that's really interesting. So on the one hand, people were rushing to go together to kind of hug each other. On the other hand, they're kind of thinking, oh, do I really want to touch this person?
Really true.
Yeah.
Or just or a sense of the anti-vaxxers versus the vaxxers. That's been a very big issue in our school, and I'm sure for all of you, that's it's a struggle. And
how have you so far? How have you chosen to resolve that issue?
Well, for us, it's no question. One, I'm a nonprofit, and two, I have a board, and three, I have a health and safety committee, and four, I'm surrounded by UW professors, and folks who are just deeply into the science. And so, even if I wanted to do something crazy like we require vaccinations, and
right.
That's
the way it is. That's the decision you've made. So you've had to make a hardline decision, and that's the way it's gone.
Yeah, and those are the moments where I wish I were more hardline myself, because I think I've suffered quite a bit. I've struggled quite a bit to bend over backwards to try to do things for people who choose not to be vaccinated. And then I just woke up one day and said, you are burning out here. This is not a place to really let your energy go rampant. There are other places that need your attention right now.
Okay. So if you had one of your students say like they wanted to go and set up a school of their own, let's say they're moving areas and they need to set up a school of their own, what would be your advice?
Get good mats. If you're going to want to do a school, I think that there's got to be some way that you understand how to draw and gather people to you who want to train. There has to be some commonality of where you live and what you're interested in, and where you would place a dojo and what part of your home or your community. And my claim to fame is that I have these incredible men and women, but I will start with having David Hurley and Greg Mock and Dan Maccabee in my court. These three men that have been with me for a long time. And so we have a real nice sense of male and female empowerment.
Yeah.
That has been extremely important for both men and women coming into the school.
Yeah, well, Aikido is all about balance, and that's a nice cat. There's a very strong sense of balance in your dojo right from day one.
I think that's a really critical thing, because we have more women teachers than men in our dojo, and it's not just because we like women more than men, but I believe that it's extremely important for anybody walking in the dojo to see powerful women completely capable of doing anything in the practice.
So one of the things that when people walk in your dojo, they see it's a mixed community, but what do you do to make everybody feel welcome and safe when they come to you?
We had two beginners come in on Saturday and sit down to watch class. And there was a lot of skirts in the dojo, so they were intimidated. One of them was intimidated. And so probably at least 4 or 5, there was Gina, there's just 4 or 5 different people come up and, hey, how you doing? Hey, what are you looking for? Hey, how's it going? And then at the end of the of the training, we decided, well, this is the first day without masks, so we're going to take a photograph of all of us. Haha. And then we look at the beginner and go, or the person watching on the bench and go, hey, will you take this camera and take a photo of us? And, you know, Gina said, now you're a part of our family. You have to join the beginning class. And it's just like that, because, yeah.
So you've got a lot of very senior grades, but it doesn't strike me like there's much ego there.
Well, ego doesn't, the whole point of the thing is to kind of calm down your ego. So, so that's encouraged. That's encouraged.
But I think it's one reason why you have the strong community you have, that's kind of beaten out of people, and people learn to trust each other and work together.
You know, you have Greg Mock, a sensei who's got these two swords and he's swinging them about 1,000 miles an hour, and he's coming within an inch of your nose or a quarter inch. And then he's so humble, and he's talking about Buddha, and he's talking about how he doesn't know anything. And then he's so fast twitch, you just can't even believe it. And it's that quality of teaching that I think invites every single person to see their extraordinariness and, you know, their humility.
Yeah, yeah. Should we open it up to everybody else? Should we open this up to everybody else?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Okay, so this is your chance, folks. Unmute and comment or ask questions as you will. I'm looking. Come on, don't be shy. I'll have to pick on one of you. You know I will. Come on, Molly. What have you got to offer?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So you've got the three shy people here. Shy people in the room, right? Well, you know, the experience of going to Two Cranes Dojo is just exceptional. The community of people that's there, the welcoming, the camaraderie, the going in when you've got all the little kids and then the adults are there. It's just been a marvelous experience. And the dojo itself, you know, you look at the far end of the room and there's those big taiko drums, and there's just a vitality in the community that's exquisite.
Thank you so much.
I don't really have a question for you, though.
So what hasn't Kimberly told us about why they're so successful that you think you should point out now?
God, just meet the people that are in the dojo. You'll get why they're so successful. They're just welcoming. Yeah. And you use the word humility. Their kindness leads, and it's really attractive.
Yes,
appreciate that.
Lovely.
I appreciate this. You know, yeah.
Wonderful stuff. Thank you, Molly.
Thank you, Molly.
Anybody else? Linda.
I'd like to put in a plug for the Aiki summer retreat. If anybody hasn't been, just go. It is the best experience. Kimberly, can you say a little bit? I don't know how much has been, I've only just heard the dates. Is there anything else you can tell us about the format or what's expected for October?
Well, you know, there is somebody sitting in this group that knows a lot about it. The dates are set, and dear Jeremy and Michael are working at this moment with our lovely hosts at Grand Labakan. And the name has been changed. It's Aikido at Grand Labakan. And that is just an extraordinary place to be, zip lines and all, or just swimming pool and fantastic food. And then there's the training in a beautiful ballroom. And Jeremy, I don't know, registration comes out Wednesday. Is that what Michael Friedel has?
We're hoping that by the 15th, we'll be ready to go. We're still kind of like, you know, doing contracts and things like that. So, but the dates are set. It's the 31st to November 5th. And that's a Sunday is the 31st. And it's going to be, so there's evening training and we do the opening, and then there's dinner, and then the rest of the week. And on Friday, it's our last day. By the way, there's the Follies will be on Thursday night, and Friday is morning class and breakfast, and then the like the 10 o'clock to noon training, kind of a slot like that. But the format is going to be on the full days is basically there's an early morning class, then there's a 10 to 12 class, and then there's 2 classes in the afternoon, like from 2 to 4:30, and that's it. No classes at night. There's other things that are going to be happening at night, and it's just an incredible facility and beautiful place, and the food is incredible as well. So. Yeah.
And I think also what Jeremy can add to what we can add is that people who have been training for a long time remember those experiences of being together as a community for a week, and the conversations that arise because you have the time, yeah. And the kids, it's kid welcome because there's tons of things for the children to do outside, and so anyway, it was a great idea. And it's just a perfect example of how great ideas flourish. Robert, hi, nice to see you. It's been a few years.
Nice to see you too, Sensei. As an observation, every dojo I've walked into has felt like the energy flowed from the dojo at a certain level. I trained for many years at Aikido West, and there's no way to imagine that place without Duran Sensei, right? I have to imagine that Seattle, if I were to ask anyone else, you know, at Two Cranes, that they would not be able to imagine it without your presence there. The question is, if you were starting fresh, and you wanted to create that sort of dojo community, what sort of would be your go-to tactics, or, you know, what 3 recommendations would you make to someone who, you know, who wants that kind of community and wants to forge it and create it and be the heart of it? What, you know, if there's any particular wisdom in how to go about achieving what you have achieved?
Well, for me, collaboration has always been one of my most compelling ways to interact. So I search for like-mindedness that I could share the load with. And so I would say to somebody, find somebody to have to have a coalition with. This is not something I would have done by myself. I had from the very beginning, I had people around me that also wished to have a way to train. So that's 1. 2, you got to like people. You got to like people, and having a having a background of psychotherapy, particularly somatic psychotherapy, was essential to me. That was a really important part, because Aikido Dojo Cho is like being a counselor, and problems arise all the time. And in the beginning, it was rough. And as I got better at it, I could handle the problems. So that's 2. And 3, location. You just have to figure out a type of a location that would draw a diverse group of people.
One of the things that we didn't really discuss actually is the strong sense of community, not only on the mat, but off the mat. It's quite evident there are so many strong friendships that carry on off the mat as well. I mean, you and Sarah, for example, you know, she goes with you most places around the world, and it's not, it's a friendship. It's more than just, you know, the Aikido relationship. I think that's a huge strength. If people start socializing together, Wow, it's hard to tear the dojo apart, isn't it? Because people want to be there.
My mom was the head of the Portland Arts Commission when I was a little girl. She brought ballets and operas into our homes and entertained people. And I grew up watching my mother be the hostess of the mostess. And that has carried on into my ability to want to do this. And in our community, we really honor the people that, you know, are born and the people that are dying and the people that need help. And constantly there's a food tree out, and there's people that, you know, take people to their cancer appointments. And this is all in addition to myself. But, and I know that a lot of dojos do this, and this is why dojos are successful, because they care about their community members and beyond.
Yeah.
That's one of the things, Quentin, that we're really trying to do in our community is to create a deeper reach for secular people. And by that, I mean people who may never want to fall down. That I feel is really an important part of laying out the principles of Aikido to people that are not athletic and not you know, wishing for that.
Absolutely. So even when they can't train on the mat, the relationship is maintained and the practice continues. It just continues in a different way.
Yeah, well, you know, we had Molly and Jeremy come and train, and then we had, like, before COVID, like we had like 3 chairs, because we realized that there were people that could not stand up, and so Molly and Jeremy are both extraordinary role models in the way they teach together. And sorry to talk to you in the third person, but it was fantastic to start bringing up chairs, and people loved it, you know, particularly the ones with rollers.
Have you found that, you know, so when the chairs are not being taken by people who actually need it, that some people request to use the chairs just to see what it's like?
Yep, and they do. And, you know, picture you're in a chair all this, you're in a chair all day long. Like, are you going to maintain your posture? How are you going to keep your heart open? How are you going to keep your neck long, you know? Sure.
Okay, I started interrupting again. Has anybody else got any questions? Or
Judith, you had your hand up a long time ago, and I would love to know what you're thinking.
Is this me?
Yes, that's
yeah.
Oh, hello. I've forgotten what I was about to say back then. Sorry. But anyway, I'm very impressed by everything I've seen and everything your dojo is doing. Oh, I remember. I was going to ask you about the kids' book.
Oh, the kids' book.
Fly. Yeah, I saw it online. I went through all the pages of it. I'm not sure where I saw it posted online, and yeah, it was very nice.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, there's always a book that's about to be coming out. That might be another lifetime, but there's a book. But that book was great, and we give it to the folks that come to the kids that come to the dojo.
Marvelous. Anybody else?
It is so nice to see you all. Jana.
Yes, hi Kimberly Sensei. It's really nice to hear from you, and I've been at the Heart to Heart seminar. It was so precious, so precious.
Oh, fantastic. We're going to put it out. We're going to put it out online for a week, in 2 weeks for the world to experience, no fee.
Yes. I was wondering, you talk right now about balancing men and women in the dojo. Before COVID, we started a group of women, but it wasn't only opening for women a safe place, but how do we balance like receiving men and women emotionally with their background, with a place where everybody really opens up, not only women, because we can do that, but even how to make men more comfortable with us, with all of those issues that we have been living for a long time. So it's not like separating, but really bringing them together as equals. I was wondering about that. Not just, oh my God, we are women, what about men? And then men, oh, women are fragile, kind of, you know, really, really blending in the community. I'm really looking forward to listen about that.
That's a fantastic question. And I think there's a lot of ways to answer that question. One is just inside the classes itself with the material that you are presenting. and having men and women really speak to the delicacy of human interaction, and particularly with trauma and assault and the things that happen to us. But obviously, women are so suspect. So I think having really powerful men speak to it and educate folks on how we can be more attuned to one another. That's one. Two is the simple way of having people gather in safe ways for discussions. That's two. After class, creating special times where anyone can come and speak to a particular issue. Three, after class beer. That is a really huge thing that started with the first days that I trained, where people really understood each other, again, in a different context. Four, women's classes. We do have once a month women's classes, and periodically quarterly we would have them, and we would have a particular subject that we would focus on. So then the men would say, well, what about us? And so then I would look at them and say, well, you know, anytime San down and above can create a men's class. So there you go. It's a great question.
Yes, thank you very much. I started watching yesterday. Unfortunately, it's in Portuguese. There's a Brazilian documentary. It's called Man's Silence. I started just a little, and it was rough. The way that men are compressed. So I think both of us have our own compressions in our cultures, but it's really how to open the heart for everyone. Really looking for that. Thank you very much.
Yeah. You know, also sense of humor. I mean, I did have this wonderful opportunity to be with Quentin before COVID, teaching and with his community. And I will say that sense of humor is a very important piece of it, because when you see just a kind of a misunderstanding in an interaction where somebody doesn't get that their power is actually offensive or hurting somebody, you know, there's ways to both point it out, but there's also ways to kind of turn it and not make light of it, but actually have another point of view on it, so both people can be seen and it can be repaired, you know.
Thank you very much. It was very, very special.
You mentioned this heart-to-heart seminar that you're going to put online. Could you copy me in on that, and I can post it in the group so that people can enjoy that?
Absolutely, yeah. I think Alex is getting it together just in the next day or two, and I'm speaking with him this afternoon about how that's going to go out. To actually say a tiny bit more about that, Quentin, our goal is once a month to put out some of our footage from the last 25, 30 years for a week for anyone to see. So we have clips of Anno Sensei when he was in Seattle in 2001 and 2003. They're just extraordinary clips. And we have clips of a number of the visiting instructors that we've had over the years. And Alex has made movies out of these. So they're just very valuable pieces of offerings.
Very rich. So how do we subscribe to make sure that we know when these things are released?
Well, that's why I asked for help because I haven't a clue. But the media committee does. So I will let you know as soon as I do.
That would be fantastic. Anybody else? Well, then I'm going. Rob.
Real quick, Sensei, I've left a message for Sarah at the dojo. Aiki Extensions is doing a roundtable coming up, hopefully September, which has partly focused on kids class, and we're asking the leaders of kids programs to put together little videos that we can compile into a little montage. Anyway, I just wanted that not to be a strange thing if you heard about it, because there's a message on the answering machine and stuff.
Oh, great. That sounds fantastic. I'm so glad you're doing that. That's perfect. Yeah. Great come out of COVID idea. Well, or even before. Great, thank you. So nice to be with you all this morning. Thanks for your.
Well, as always, it's been a rich session, and I've struggled to tease through your modesty as to why you've been so successful, but I suspect that most people will have got it. So thank you so much for sharing with us. You know, you have a fantastic community, and that's not by luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. David, so good to see you.
Hello, Sensei. I'm sorry, but I've got a quick question. So I apologize, I've been missing it's the first time I've been back since the 22nd of April. And it's mainly because, well, partly because you're on, Sensei, that I'm here to listen to you again, and you've helped and inspired me and reopened my heart, which has been closed for the last 3 months for various reasons. So it's been wonderful to listen to what you have to say. When you had all the problems with finding a dojo space, did you actually consider just like not renting a place, but just, you know, attending at a leisure center, or you know, just renting a space on a weekly basis or a class club basis like we have to do in the UK generally? Or do you find that having your own building or your own property or your own dojo helped build the community?
I was never good at looking at gyms or rec centers for dojos. I never saw them as the same. I mean, obviously for renting for huge events, but I would sacrifice size for some sort of keep the safe space sacred. Every time I tried to share the dojo with different groups of people, besides we have our Taiko community and our Tai Chi community that comes in, but I don't know, it was rough. It just in terms of caring for the space. So yeah, I don't know how to answer that because.
No, well, you answer it doesn't suit you, so that's cool. Oh, I think what you've done is great.
Yeah, I mean, if I went to a new city, I suppose I would go to a center. I would try to find some place where that felt good to me. More likely it'd be a yoga school than it would be a gym, though. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
It's nice to see you.
So big thank you. And,
take care of yourselves.
Thanks everybody for being here as always. And we look forward to having another excuse to invite you back, Kimberly.
Oh, can hardly wait. Can hardly wait to see you.
So can I throw one quick thing in here? Andrew Buchanan. Andrew, when you've got your special field behind you, well, oftentimes you completely disappear. Your head goes out of the field, and it's your shoulders and your belly, and then your head will pop back in, and then it pops back out. Anyway, it's been amusing. And it causes great laughter.
Perfect way to finish.